Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Bob Pollock is with us. The Extension Services, Bob Pollock, brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. If you have a question for Bob, you can call 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. It is May Mart today and tomorrow. So lots of flowers and plants and maybe a few shrubs, too, on display at S&T Bank Arena, indoors and out. May Mart must mean it's time to get planting, huh, Bob?
It must mean that.
Yeah.
It does mean that.
Here's a question that maybe we weren't anticipating. A lot of folks tending to graves over the course of the next couple of weeks. It is that season of the year, and for graves that have been dug in the last year, we know what they look like. A lot of dirt, and now the rocks have come to the surface. Once the rainwater washes the dirt away, you've got a ton of rocks on top of those things. And the dirt that is on top is usually not the best dirt in the world. So let's talk about tending that grave. You've got a mound of dirt. You want to work that down. You want to put in some good topsoil, I'll assume, right?
Most likely. If it hasn't been, if the bottom's on the top and the top's on the bottom,
yeah,
you either need to spade down and see if you can find some of that topsoil that disappeared, or if it was really put back well, maybe the topsoil is still there.
Yeah, some will actually peel back the sod and,
Yes.
and preserve it, but
That's right.
Not very many do that.
Sometimes the backhoe takes it out, and however it gets put back, gets put back. But yeah, check out the situation first. See what that soil is like. Oftentimes, right around the base of the marker, that can be pretty stony or rocky or even clay in there. I think it really varies what you run into there, and it can be. And a lot of people want to go the whole way around, right around the stone itself, and don't venture too far out from that. But
No.
Mowing and all those things get in the way of that. But so you might not have a big area to amend, but probably will have to do something.
Yeah.
But to clean it up, to
pick the
stones and get that out of there. And if there's clay in there, you may have to pull that out and bring some topsoil in so that you can replace that and have a more hospitable place for flowers to grow.
Is there an ideal plant that it isn't going to take a lot of tending? I don't have to visit every 2 or 3 days in order to flower or to water and things of that nature. Is there an ideal plant to put around a grave? Because there are a lot of people, they want to put pretty flowers and everything, but then once those flowers dry up a little bit and the weather gets a little bit different and they can't get out there to tend to them, it doesn't make the prettiest appearance, certainly not the appearance that they had when they were brand new and fresh.
True. I don't know that there's a perfect plant for that. I think amending that soil, and having some good soil there that will all, with some compost or organic matter added in there that can help that soil hold moisture as well as nutrients. It's going to allow the plants to grow better, root in a little deeper, and be able to take some of those drier conditions or, not watering or, and over time, impatiens, geraniums, now oftentimes you have to be careful about the impatiens because of being out in full sun, but the ones that'll take more sun than shade, because most grave sites have a lot of sun, not very much shade in that area, but and you can do perennials too if you want to. A lot of times people will put, you could do, although they are more of a shade, they're more shade tolerant than they are. Sometimes they'll bleach out in the full sun, but some of those perennials, even some iris or ones like that you're going to only have that flowering for a shorter period of time, but you still do have that foliage that will maintain itself, and they're pretty tough plants as well.
All right, let's get to our caller this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I was going to chip in with a couple of suggestions, but Bob, in his infinite wisdom, has covered them.
His wisdom is not infinite. I've checked.
So there's surely another one there that's
here.
Yeah, you were going to say petunias, huh?
I was going to say hostas.
Yep.
Because they seem to grow everywhere. And
yeah, that's
like
pretty tough.
The iris part. Yeah, that shot my wad. So, thanks, guys.
Well, we appreciate your contributing to the conversation here this morning. People get to thinking about these things.
Yeah, and getting those plants established goes a long way. And sometimes, you pop them in the ground. They're small. They have a small root ball on them. They've come out of a cell pack, and even kind of tending or going back maybe once a week for a month until those plants get established. Geraniums are another one that'll hang in there pretty well.
Marigolds too.
Yeah. And those will be rebloomers, and there's some other ones in there. The Calibrachoa, and so, there's some other ones that can fit in that.
Of course, the deer come in and eat them all up anyway. So
yeah. But those hostas, once they're established, boy, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah,
They're pretty tough.
Your cemetery association might not like you so much once you get those babies.
I've taken hosta and spaded them up, turned them upside down, put them back in the hole, and a year later they're poking back up there again, trying to grow.
Plant some strawberries in there. You can never get rid of strawberry plants. They're hard to get rid of. But it just was a question that, seeing that yesterday was Native Species Day, and the governor and some others were talking about a number of different things. They made some stops at some watersheds and some other places. They were talking about invasive species as well. Obviously, if you're talking about what's native, you want to talk about what's invasive, and how do you handle that. That list grows, though, doesn't it? Invasive species.
Yes, there's always... Yeah, as you look over time, it's definitely grown, and there's trees and shrubs and flowers, both annual and perennial plants that have been added to that list over time, and it's grown. But that's, every day there's movement across the globe. And so, we don't tend to hear what plants that are native here are on the invasive list in some other country, do we?
Yeah.
We always hear what's been brought in here.
Our Pennsylvania plants are polluting some other country right now.
But then, it stands to reason that would make sense. What is common, and there's other, whether it's plants or insects or diseases, things that keep things in check here because they're native plants, but then there's other things that can keep them from not becoming invasive, but then you take that plant and you move it to an environment that doesn't have any of those things to hold it back, or it's more competitive, and then it becomes invasive in that other place.
Yeah, there's a shift in balance there.
Where it was.
Last week went and got my plants, but we'll have Lynette Yarnick on with us a little bit later. Got my plants at Yarnick's, and she's doing something different this year that I've not noticed her having done before. And she said, check this out. And she handed me a basil plant in a pot. And you basically sit it on the patio, and boy, is it aromatic. It smells so wonderful. A potted basil plant,
yes,
I thought was really, really cool. And it looks great.
And that's and so there's an herb that you can do that with. Some of the patio tomatoes, the cherry tomatoes that are a bush plant.
Yeah, she does that.
Do the same thing with that.
She gave me
some of the other herbs as well.
Potted strawberry plants.
Yeah,
I had not heard of that before. I've only ever heard of them in my garden.
And they'll, so in more recent years, strawberries, especially in Europe, places where they've run into a lot of issues in the soil from growing, one crop, for example, strawberries, in the soil, they've run into a lot of disease issues to the point where they can't grow them in the soil anymore in the fields. Mm-hmm. So they had to transition. So they've really ramped up their activity so much of those berries are now grown in a structure, in a greenhouse.
Yeah.
And so they're either grown in containers or they're grown in the coconut core, which is that husk off coconuts. But instead of potting soil, which you can still grow them in potting soil, but there'll be bags with this coconut core in the greenhouse on an elevated platform, so that they're up, at waist height or higher, so that from a maintenance, from working, you're not bending over on the ground like we normally have to do to work and pick berries.
The strawberry plant, those are pretty plants.
And they are a pretty plant. And if you get an ever-bearing, ever-bearing or day-neutral variety, meaning they don't need the certain conditions to flower, those plants will reflower over the summer, but it usually it's not every day, but it does have to be staged a little bit. But yes, those can grow in pots because they don't have a big root system. You can put 3 or 4 plants in a pot. And it comes back then to maintenance and care of that plant, how long it will last and how well it will do.
Yeah. But hey, my patio this year is, in addition to my garden being decorated, my patio will have cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes in pots, and a basil plant, and a Joey's tomato, and a strawberry plant. I think it's really going to be a cool time. It's going to be fun.
So in those conditions, when we're growing in containers and using potting soil, that's different than growing things in the plants in the ground. So where we have that nutrient bank there with a lot of the micronutrients and everything we need in our soils here to help supplement those plants, when we stick them in that potting soil, that's a different environment. And so we have to remember to water, and we have to remember to feed those plants if we want to keep them healthy and growing, because it just doesn't have that bank full of nutrients like our typical soils do.
All right, so we'll do that, and we'll have fun with it. All right, Bob.
All right.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.